All right, so our next speaker is Cole Siniawski from Denison University. The project title is Analyzing Consistency Among NHL Forwards. This is the project partnering up with the Penguins, Carolina Wu. So Cole is a junior at Denison, double majoring in data analytics and economics. Extremely passionate about hockey and sports analytics through continuing work and research in analytics focused on hockey. In his free time, you can find him at the ice rink coaching youth hockey, playing adult league hockey, in addition to watching hockey games with friends. After graduation, he plans on pursuing career in analytics, whether it's sports analytics or financial analytics. So, Cole, please take it away.
Use that mic. Yeah. Okay. Use this. And then, do you want the clicker? Or just wanna...
Yeah, I'll take the clicker. Why not? Oh, perfect. Sweet. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Kwong, for the introduction there. So my name is Cole Siniawski. I worked along with my partner, Celine Su and Chisunta Chikwamu. Sorry if I mispronounced that. They couldn't join us here today, so you have me for 15 minutes. Sorry. We, of course, as Kwong mentioned, that we worked with Carnegie Wu and the Pittsburgh Penguins R&D team for helping out with this project and guiding us through this process. So getting into some of like the background work of like why kind of this question. Well, let's start with two players here. We have player A and we have player B. And with player A, we could see, they're putting up pretty relative points every single game, 1 to 2 points every single game. Then we have player B on the other side here who had 2 games that have like 6 points. That's great. And then the rest were all zeros. So of the rhetorical question, which player would you rather have? Probably player A, right? They're putting up more points. They're contributing to the team a bit more. Where player B is like, okay, great. He stands out for 1 or 2 games, but okay, that's only helping the team for 1 to 2 games. So I think you'd rather have a player that is player A, in this case, that is consistently producing for your team and helping you get wins. So our goal for this project was, okay, well, 1, how do we measure consistency? Who are the most consistent players when we are doing this analysis? And is there value in consistency? Do teams value the consistency that players produce? So some background about hockey, because I'm sure not all of you know about hockey. We play on an ice rink 200 feet by 80 feet, 200 feet long by 85 feet wide. We're played on 5-on-5 with 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and then a goalie in net. And so some of our key variables that we honed in on was even strength goals and even strength assists. Even strength being that the state of the game is the same. So both teams either have 5 players on the ice at one time, both teams have 4 players on the ice at each time, or both teams have 3 players on the ice at each time. You cannot go any lower than 3 players on the ice at a time. And then we also focus on shooting percentage, which is basically just the effectiveness of the shots that players are taking. And we gather this data from player performance data, or seasonal performance data, I should say, from the 2016-17 season to the 2023-2024 season. This is to make sure we account for pre-COVID seasons and then obviously post-COVID seasons, because a lot has changed from those seasons prior to now. So getting on to some of our data exploration. So testing like the predictability of some of the metrics that we're planning on using. We wanted to see, okay, is there reliability going from testing the variables from one season to the next amongst players? So we tested a lot more variables than just these 3, but these are the 3 that we had used for our modeling and our analysis. So this is, we just focused on these for the predictability. And we can see it's relatively low, but in terms of variability and predictiveness from cross season to season, it's actually pretty good. So, we did it by with the explanatory variable being the previous season, the response being the season afterward, and we look at the respective R-squared values for each of those metrics to see if there is that predictability going from season to next. Noticeably, I will say the 2016-17 season, pretty low, but the scoring in the 2016-17 season was really low. Like Sidney Crosby won the Maurice Rocker Richard with 44 goals, and the highest point scorer was Connor McDavid with 100 points. Very low scoring compared to what we're seeing today, where McDavid, Kucherov, and all of them are putting up 140 plus points a year now. So some of the methods that you'd use. So Z-score, we need to use a Z-score analysis to standardize our metrics because shooting percentage is not on the same scale as even strength goals and assists are. So we need to make sure that we put everything on the same scale when we go to combine all these metrics for an overall offensive performance metric. And then also to able to combine all of those metrics without any sort of biasy, we wanted to use principal component analysis, which would determine weights for each of those metrics that we would then use to create that overall combined metric. So we would normalize those weights to a sum of 1 to make sure we're not going above or below that standard, weighting, and then apply them to make the combined metric by taking the weight and multiplying it by the metric itself. And then for calculating the consistency itself, we use weighted variance change, where we essentially take some weight, in which case for us it was games played per season, and we multiply that by the change in whatever metric, whether it be the even strength goals, assists, shooting percentage, or the combined metric, and we take that squared, obviously just the variance, and then take over the sum of those weights. And that gives us a good indication of the inconsistency or consistency that the player has over those metrics. So here is a graph of clustering. So this is on the y-axis here, we have the overall performance of goals at per 60 at even strength. And on the y-axis, we have inconsistency. So the higher that inconsistency score, the more inconsistent they are. Near 0, more consistent they are. So, and then those gold lines that you see there, those are the medians of each of those. So we can have a proper clustering to take a look, okay, based off of the medians, like, okay, where's this player located with respect to everyone else in the league? So we can see down in the bottom right-hand corner here, this would be like your good players and your consistent players. So we can see like Connor McDavid, Braden Point, both those guys they're pretty good, and they are really consistent, and they put up a lot of points. But Austin Matthews, who you see, obviously he scores a lot of goals, but he's pretty inconsistent for those seasons that he has played. And then you have a bunch of other guys going around, but more precisely about these quadrants. So the bottom right-hand quadrant, as I said, is strong, high performance with even strength goals and are consistent. The bottom left is bad players that are consistent. Top right is good players that are inconsistent. And the top left is inconsistent and bad. So you don't want to be in that quadrant. Sorry, Noel Chari. And now moving into our overall offensive performance, which is now on the x-axis instead of even strength goals. So this is taking the overall performance metric is now combining the even strength goals, even strength assists, and the shooting percentage. And we still have that inconsistency on the y-axis there. So same thing. It's the same for clustering. You want your good and inconsistent are in the bottom right, and everything else follows. So you can see like Nikolai Ehlers, Mark Scheifele, Leon Draisaitl, Kucherov, McDavid, they're all found in that bottom right-hand corner, which is a good sign to see that, that these players are consistent, but they're also good. When I first saw that Scheifele was down there, it seemed, I guess this might have been a bias because we don't get a lot of marketing from Winnipeg. So he seems to be a super underrated player. And that kind of goes into the value of consistency here. So this is a testing to see, okay, what do teams value? Do they value consistency or do they value offensive performance? So we did a quick, linear regression model to test to see if if there was a better predictability with performance on salary or consistency on salary. So we can see there's a high adjusted R squared for predicting salary by performance versus cap WVC, which is the weighted variance change. That WMC is the weighted mean change. I wanted to include that in there as it's another way of calculating the variance. But instead of doing that squared with if I go back, instead of taking that squared of that delta X, it would just be delta X, that's it. So this gives us a better idea of actual inconsistency versus weighted mean change, which might not calculate the variance that well. So we can see it doesn't seem like teams actually seem to value consistency amongst players. So some of our limitations, we use open source NHL data, which continually needs to be tracked more accurately, which then could lead to potential issues comparing from season to season data. And then we really wanted to get into measuring consistency among defensemen and goalies. However, there were just very few performance metrics for them, so it made it very hard to build models and actually see if if consistency is there for their value. And then also, like, some of the times that the metrics are just poor quality, as in they're very subjective when they're calculated, like hits or block shots or et cetera along those lines. It could be very hard to make something like that if it's not reliable. And then some of my concurrent and future work that I'm trying to do and still doing, measuring consistency from a game-to-game basis, that will help us garner maybe a more game-to-game style of, okay, should this player be in the lineup? Like, where should we be putting him in the lineup? How much ice time should we be allocating to him? That kind of thing. And then hopefully when they come out with more data for measuring consistency among defensemen and goalies, that would be the next best thing, just so that we not have to be focused on the forwards the entire time. Thank you, and I'll be open for questions now.
For the sake of time, we're going to defer the questions to the break. So great job to Cole. Fantastic talk. We're going to move forward ahead. Kwan's going to introduce the next set of speakers who should start walking down here because they know they're going to talk.